Chapter 15. Laney glanced up as the kitchen door opened and froze. She had come in here to do her devotional and drown her feelings in a bowl of ice cream, but she had not expected to run into Tyler. "Oh, Tyler, what are you doing here?" She didn't think they would approve of her being in the same room with him if she wasn't doing his makeup. That probably went against her contract. "I was looking for some of that." He pointed to her carton of ice cream. "You mind if I share?" The correct answer was neither yes nor no, but leaving the room, especially after their interaction earlier, but her body refused to move. I guess not." He grabbed a spoon from the drawer and sat across from her. "What are you reading?" "I was doing my devotional. I'm in the book of Luke." "You're a believer too?" There was surprise, but not condescension in his voice. Still, she answered slowly, unsure of where this conversation was going. "I am." He nodded, but said nothing as he scooped up a bite of ice cream. She decided to pry a little. "Did the date not go well?" She tried to keep her focus on the bowl, but her eyes glanced up at him. "It started out well. I found out Heidi was a believer too." A feeling of dread settled in Laney's stomach. Was he about to tell her he decided Heidi was the one for him? "Unfortunately, it turns out her family also owns a winery, and wine is an integral part of their family." "And that's a bad thing because—" Tyler put down his spoon and stared at her. "Do you drink?" The question caught her off guard, and Laney blinked a few times as she processed it. "I'm not much of a drinker. I watched my dad get drunk on New Year's Eve once, and he acted so stupid. While I can't say I never drink, it's certainly something I could live without. Why do you ask?" "Because I'm a recovering alcoholic." The look he shot her was almost a challenge. "And I can't be with a woman who drinks." A light flicked on as a piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "Is that what you meant about your jaw? Did you get in fights when you were drinking?" He ran a hand across his chin and dropped his gaze. "I did. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's something I've worked hard to overcome. So I can't date a woman who surrounds herself with alcohol." "Well, that is understandable." Why was he telling her this? "I'm sorry things with Heidi didn't work out." He took another bite as he continued to stare at her. "Are you?" The question flustered Laney. What was she supposed to say to that? "I mean, yeah, that's why you came on the show, right? To find a partner?" "And what if I find someone I think would make a great partner? But she isn't a contestant." Laney's breath caught in her throat. Was he talking about her? He had to be. There was no other explanation. She wanted to tell him that he should tell her, that he should leave the show and pursue her. But then she thought of the ramifications. He would lose his contract and the money he needed for his ranch, so she didn't tell him those things. Instead, she said the words she never expected to come out of her mouth. "I think you should focus on finding a partner among the contestants." He opened his mouth as if to protest, but Laney didn't let him. "I wish you luck, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow before the ceremony." She grabbed her Bible and hurried from the room. Tears were already starting to blur her vision, and she didn't want Tyler seeing them. Tyler tried to focus on what Lila was saying, but his mind refused to forget the night before with Laney. She felt something for him. He was sure she did. But why hadn't she said so? He had given her the perfect opening, and she hadn't taken it. Then she had barely spoken to him today while doing his makeup. Had he read her wrong? Maybe she wasn't single, just friendly? But he didn't think so. "You're a lot nicer than I expected. People told me horror stories about men from Texas, how they dominated their women and carried guns everywhere. But you don't seem like that at all." She giggled and placed a hand on his arm. Her words grabbed his attention, and for a moment Laney flew from his mind. "What? I mean, I have guns, but they're to protect my cattle from coyotes and other wild animals. And I have no desire to dominate a woman. I want a partner. Who told you such nonsense?" He was overreacting, and he knew it, but he was upset. Why was he having to feign interest in a woman like this when the woman he wanted to be talking to was back in her bungalow? Lila bit her lip and removed her hand as if worried she had upset him. "Oh, that makes so much more sense. Perhaps they were just messing with me. I am a little gullible." "Well, I'm glad I could clarify for you." Tyler didn't care at all, but he knew his frustration had little to do with Lila's misconceptions and more about his issue with Laney. "I'm glad you could too. I was actually terrified to go to your ranch." "Why?" Tyler could only imagine what her friends must have told her about ranchers. Pink flamed across her cheeks, and she dropped her eyes to her hands. I thought you would make us shoot an animal and cook it for dinner. At this, Tyler laughed out loud. I don't hunt my food. I raise cattle to sell. And while I have chickens, it's for their eggs and not their meat. My food, I buy at the grocery store, like you do. She bit her lip and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I feel a little silly, but I'd never been to Texas, and my friends swore they had. Of course, I realized not all of Texas was like that, but when I heard you were from a small town, I guess I just assumed. That's awful. I shouldn't assume. She looked so dejected that Tyler reached over and squeezed her hand. It's okay. We all do it sometimes. I'm just glad you get to go back with the truth. Me too. She stared up at him with big doe eyes that almost made him want to give her a second chance. But he was tired of doing the same thing over and over again. In fact, wasn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same things again and expecting a different outcome? He had dated too many women who he connected with momentarily, but wanted different things out of life. So even though Lila was beautiful and sweet, he knew a relationship with her would never last. And that was what he wanted, a relationship that lasted. The only problem was that he wanted a relationship with Laney, and she seemed unable or unwilling to give it a shot with him. He needed to know why, and he needed to do it before the ceremony.